And welcome to yet another episode of 94 by 50 podcast brought to you by yours truly, Ilya Kurbanov. It's powered by OXP Media. If you haven't followed us yet, go follow us on Instagram, Twitter at OXP Media. And if you haven't followed my podcast yet, this give you a chance to go recapture all the moments that I've had so far in the three previous episodes with Nikita Kasongo as a DK and Danilo Juricic, three great guests that I've had the privilege to have on this podcast. But without further ado, the guest for this episode, as you guys might have seen it already, is Michael Moody, former Dalhousie Tigers assistant coach and current McGill Redbirds assistant coach, numerous times AUS champion, a U Sports Final Eight silver and bronze medalist with the Tigers as well. So please welcome, without further ado, Coach Michael Moody. How you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to be with you, during these crazy times and to see that you're doing well and, very proud of what you've been up to and what you've been doing and achieving in your career. It's great to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate you joining me today. It's crazy times we live in. This COVID, I feel like, has all of us learning a little bit about ourselves and kind of opening new doors to everything that we have. For me, this podcast, like I've had this podcast idea for a very long time. I've done my internship with TSN 690, and then I was like, boom, everyone told me get your name out. That's the best way to do it. And now the pandemic hit, and you have all the times at your hands. But enough about me. Enough about me. Let's talk about you, buddy. How's everything, man? How's the pandemic treating you right now?
Well, it's a challenge. But that's the thing about living in challenging times. When certain things shut down, like it opens so many opportunities to do other things, like you just said. Um, it's tough to be with your athletes, to have or maintain effective training facilities and opportunities, but it allows you to focus on other things. Getting athletes to read a little bit more, just become a little bit more insightful in terms of what's going on right now. I like to call it the 2020 vision, because of everything that's been going on in 2020. Makes you look at it through new eyes and appreciate different things that you might have taken for granted. Family time, maybe taking care of your body a little bit more, a little bit better, focusing on diet and nutrition a little bit more. Those kind of things.
And as I put in the description, we will talk about a lot. I think player coach relationship because I think it's one of the most important components when it comes down to building a great athlete, great student athlete. For those who don't know, Mike Moody was my coach at Champlain for a year and then trained me for numerous years after. And still to this day, if I need anything, piece of advice, I reach out to him and we talk about anything. But let's rewind and going back to that player coach relationship in the times like this pandemic. What's the biggest challenge to actually maintain that healthy relationship? Well, while you are far apart from everyone else, like you train a number of guys, just to name Eze, right? He's in that pandemic state with Ivy League not playing. What's the biggest challenge to maintain that relationship and continue achieving and help others achieve their goals on the basketball court or anything else?
Well, as this pandemic, continues and carries on, people are getting a little tired of the Zoom meetings. I think we're all zoomed out, and you know, there's still a lot of communication that needs to be done. So finding ways to maybe communicate without using Zoom, and I mean that could look like going for a distance walk. Um, but we need to be more dynamic in terms of the ways we communicate. Attention span is short, so to be on a Zoom meeting, an hour can seem like like forever, right? When the attention span is short, so you will lose a lot of what you're trying to get across maybe in the last 10, 15 minutes of that time being spent together. Um, so yeah, just trying to get together within the parameters, but also trying to keep that athlete driven and focused. It's very tough to create new challenges when their mind is so wrapped around what they can't have or what they don't have. A court to get up shots, a person to pass them the ball, a scrimmage to get up and down and play 5-on-5. But when you've built the foundation of a strong relationship, I do believe you have a better opportunity of getting messages across and getting them to buy into different concepts.
Yeah, totally. I think even when I spoke with Eze, he would just talk to me like, yeah, I try to do the most I can with everything I got in my hands, especially when you have that type of year where you're not playing, but you have an opportunity to get better and become a better player, person, student, and just have so much time in your hands. But, you know, what's your, best experience when it came down to you know, helping someone getting to another level as a coach?
Wow. There's so many, but I'm gonna be completely honest, and I hope you don't mind me using you as an example. But I've got to bring this up because I use it as a teachable moment all the time. Your situation at Champlain is one that I constantly draw reference to, and to see where you are, you've never you've never dropped the ball on it. You've stayed consistent, always driven. You were at Champlain and didn't have a uniform.
Yeah,
That
you're
didn't
right.
stop you from working for 3 years, right? And when I joined the coaching staff, I told you this does not need to be the end of your basketball career. This does not need to define you as a player, right? And I getting that across and watching you work even harder, right? That that's been a joy to watch you grow, blossom, and achieve on and off the court, and that's ultimately what the coaching is all about. That developing that relationship, and having opportunities created well beyond the 94 by 50 court, the playing dynamic of the basketball court, right? And you're doing it now, and because you've developed that resilience, when other things didn't work out, you, what we like to call, moved on to the next play, right? And that's something that I use in my training and in my basketball, getting players to buy in and believe in, okay, next play, right? You might have made a mistake here, something didn't work out, but what's the next play? And that's so key for life. That you went to Kings, you played, you got cut after you played and had a tremendous season, great stats that year. Believe me, I followed you, and now you've bounced back, right? There's an evolution there. There's you've become a little more calloused, a little more seasoned, right? So you know how to deal with these things. It's made you a better basketball player, but it's also made you a better person in life, right? And that's ultimately what that player coach relationship is about, is helping players develop those skills that will translate off the court into everyday life.
It's funny, like you mentioned. First off, thank you. I might have to turn off the camera for a second. I need to cry a little bit, but Shaylee Smith actually saying hi to Michael. Thank you for joining and watching the podcast as we continue to talk player coach relationship on this episode. But like you said, it's funny you mentioned me, but every single day, even regardless of the situation of how it went down for me at Champlain, like I remember clearly going there as a walk-on, not expecting anything from Dan Martin. Shout out to Dan Martin. But him and you, I think I use as prime examples of who made me who I am today, just because I was able to have that relationship. And even though, I didn't play, me and Dan, we always like we were on that same page. We always talked, we always had like that personal relationship. And still to this day, like he supports what I'm doing right now. Every time I post an episode, I feel like he's the first person to share my podcast. He just goes on and do it. And I think that just goes beyond basketball, like you said, beyond those lines. Um, but same thing now, going to that player coach relationship and how you talk to the players in those tough moments. Um, and the toughest moment, I would assume a lot of players faced is a loss. When you come off of that big loss that you were this close, and that would be last year when the team came this close, the Tigers team, to win that gold medal for the U Sports Final 8 national championship. What was it like talking to those players and letting them know this is not the end and you guys can come back, bounce back and do it again?
Well, the first 24 hours were probably the most difficult, because it's still so fresh, right? It's an open wound. Um, I knew going into that season, I knew going into my position with Dal when I first joined the staff, that it wasn't going to be easy, right? To get to our goal, our end goal. And, one of the things that we brought up was, guys, we made history. And to think about what that means to make history at Dal, it's such a fine institution, that has a deep history on and off the court. To be a part of that, to have other people celebrate in that success, to bring that up and have the guys see that and let them know that just because we lost that game doesn't mean that that's the end of the road. That's the beginning. Because I do believe you got to go through things before you can come out on top, right? Like you got to have your go through. And that's going to be a part of the story that they tell, right? And they should be bold about telling that story. Just like the players before them that got so close, right? And maybe a couple points away. We were a couple points away from getting to the final years before that. So, without that happening, we don't get to the finals last year. And who knows? Without us losing the finals last year, maybe that means that we'll win the finals down the road. But definitely it was tough in the first 24 hours to get them to see their success and the journey that they were a part of. It's very tough, but they've all become better players and better people for it.
I totally agree. I think that team was probably the most complete I saw ever since I got to Halifax to watch Dal play, like, cover them at the AUS championships and just watching them tear up the AUS. Kevin Duan, thank you for joining as well. He wants to talk about you here, but I think we'll skip that part. Um, Kevin is a former player. He played for Moody at Dawson College and as well as the Tigers, Dalhousie Tigers men's basketball. Shout out to Kevin for joining the podcast and watching. But
if I could just jump in real quick, as we talk about the relationships and the player-coach relationships, like Kevin's a great example. Still staying in touch, still wants to be in shape. Before this pandemic, we would talk daily, and continue to work out and work on his body, and still working on developing his skill set, right? These are the kind of relationships that that I love, and that go on well beyond their playing careers. And one of my measuring sticks, and it's a secret of mine, and I probably shouldn't be letting it out, but how I measure my success in terms of my player relationship is, when you get that call, that invitation to the graduation, the christening, or the birth of the first child, or the wedding, that's when you know you've done a good job, you've built a strong relationship, and you've had impact on this player's life on and off the court, right? So I often use that as a measuring stick in terms of success of player coach relationships.
And just going back to that, when players on Tigers team found out, I'm not gonna put out names out there, but a lot of guys that I'm close with and guys that I talk to, everyone is like, yeah, Moody's gonna be missed. Like he that just goes to show how much impact he left on the players, not only on the court, like teaching them skills and teaching them how to take care of their bodies and the physicality and everything and all that that's involved around basketball, but just like that personal relationship that you built with each and everyone on the team. And same thing with personal. Why is it important to have a different approach to every single player?
Well, every player is they're wired differently, right? Every person is built differently. Within the coaching ranks, we often talk about signing up for coaching, but coming out with like a master's in psychology, right? Like you need to be a coach, you need to be a father, a brother, a friend, a pastor. You are so many things as a coach. Um, so, you know, everybody deals with situations differently. And just in terms of the way coaches will deal with a player. And I mean that comes down to, why coaches will recruit a certain type of player because of the certain kind of coach that person is. Can this player deal with that? And not everybody can. And that's why I think it's so important for those assistant coaches and trainers and athletic trainers to develop that relationship so that player, each player always feels like they have somebody to lean on when it gets tough. Because listen, coaches are gonna yell, right? And it's tough as a player to pick apart or decipher what they're yelling about and get that proper information when your feelings are being hurt, right? And it's true. Like everybody has feelings and everybody deals with it differently. Even the toughest guys on the team. Don't think that they don't walk out of there feeling a little bit down sometimes when coaches come down on them because they do. So that's where I think it's time for like me to step in and let that player know. Listen, you're doing fine. Just listen to what coach is saying. Just block out the noise. He may not be saying it in the right way, but you got to get the information because what he's saying is true.
Absolutely. Um, the amount of times you told me, Ilya, just bite the bullet. Ilya, just bite the bullet. That's like my favorite saying from now on. Next, bite the bullet. Next, bite the bullet. Yeah, it makes sense, to have that approach and have that conversation when something is not working out with each player. Obviously, it requires different attention. Now, let's talk a little bit about really the taking care of our body, especially in a pandemic right now, right? You mentioned it's a lot tougher because you can lose that focus. You can, lose motivation doing those little things that really matter in the long run. Um, it's a rhetorical question to ask, why is it important? But I have to. Why is it important to really take the time and take care of our bodies as athletes?
As athletes, I always believe you need to be ready at any moment, right? You can't waste time on trying to get in shape. The best way to be in shape is to never get out of shape. Um, and now this is my personal philosophy, like, and I've had to kind of tweak it dealing with teams and different players and their different training experience. But I don't believe in full on in season maintenance. I do believe that you can get stronger in season. Um, so that when you get out of season, when you're doing off season training, you're not wasting your first month trying to get back some strength, right? You can still gain a little bit of strength during your in season. Now, right now, what that may look like for some people, it might only just be 2 days a week, and it could be that old fashioned power lift right now, depending on what they have. But I think right now in the pandemic, if you were to go 2, 3 times a week and break your workouts up, hit workouts and get some plyo workouts and a lot of mobility, get a lot of mobility in there, you'll be fine. As an athlete, it's very important to be in shape because that is the separator. There are guys, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a player, you would hate having cover you or you have to cover them, and they're not more skilled, they're just in better shape and they're running all over the place, right? And you've got to be in shape to keep up with them, right? So I think that that's going to be the separator, the deciding factor, or the game changer, or the level of the playing field now, is those players that have that work ethic versus the players that have the talent and not the work ethic. The players that didn't have the talent are going to catch up or pass those players. So that's why I think it's very important for everybody to stay in shape as an athlete right now during this pandemic, because we are going to get over this. And you're going to see some of these teams, these college teams that have been practicing all pandemic, they're going to come out on top because they haven't missed a beat. It's also very important for that mental health, right? To set some goals, to achieve some other goals, and to be able to see yourself doing that.
I think it's also important to note that sometimes athletes and people just in general forget the importance of maintaining healthy mental health. What are some advices maybe that you can give to perhaps, like, there's ways to stay in shape physically? You can stretch, you can go for a run, you can do some push-ups at home, some sit-ups, there's a lot of workouts you can do, but how do you manage to just like take your time and also take care of your mental health?
Are you asking me specifically how I do it?
Well, no, I just an advice, like how, like if you had to recommend it to someone, like something to do to be like mentally okay and not worry about depression or being anxious about something.
Well, first of all, I think you have to have or find the fun in it. There has to be something that you enjoy. One of these things, one of the phrases that's being thrown out to people that are struggling to find physical activity that they enjoy is other people are just saying, "Oh, just get outside and run." Well, if you have anxiety about running and you actually don't like it, that is not going to help your mental health, right? You're gonna dread getting ready to go out and do something that you hate doing. So it's not helping. Um, Not to mention, you know how Quebec winters are. Here, the surfaces are not even. You're running in like 3 feet of snow because the
Not
plow.
recommended at all.
Exactly. So you've got to find something that you enjoy. Um, and it could be simple as a walk with somebody, with a friend, or listening to motivational music. But you have to find something that you enjoy doing around physical activity. And I think that's half the battle.
Mhm. Perfect. I think it's well said. I'm someone that's just like, I have the opportunity to go to the gym right now if I wanted to, you know. If I if I wasn't here doing this episode with you, I would have been in the gym or just like relaxing, take care of my schoolwork, maybe play some video games, as much as some coaches hate that, but you have to have some fun to get away from that everyday school, everyday, training, because you always train and there's, you gotta relax sometimes. And I think you would probably agree that players who constantly train can also hurt themselves.
Yes, overtraining is huge. Now you do need some sort of active recovery. Now that could be going for a walk, bike ride, whatever, just to get away from your sport, but not to sit on the couch and allow your body to tighten up in that recovery phase. But yeah, no, overtraining is a serious issue. And that a lot of guys that are really driven and think they're not doing enough. Sometimes in those situations, less is more, right? Less is more. As long as you're training consistently, you're getting, like I said in the beginning, if you're getting 2 to 3 workouts in a week right now, I think you're on track. You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Well, Moody, once again, thank you very much for hopping on here and talking some life basketball training as we cope with this pandemic in different ways. I appreciate your time. You always welcome here, and I'm glad I was able to share the couple of stories here with our viewers.
My pleasure, man. I appreciate it. I enjoyed doing this. Hey, you know how it is. Anytime you need something, hit me up and I got you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Always on the phone, man.
All right.
Appreciate you. All right, have a good one.
All right. Take care, guys.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye.
And here it is. You guys heard it. You guys saw it from firsthand experience from Michael Moody himself. Always a pleasure to chat with him. One of the nicest people that I've been around, and one of the definitely toughest and hardest working people as well. So thank you once again for joining us today. Thank you for sharing these stories. We will be back probably next week, maybe once, maybe twice, who knows, depending on what we are able to line up for you. But other than that, make sure to follow our page, my page, excuse me, with the 94 by 50 podcast on Facebook, 94 by 50 podcast on Instagram and YouTube, all the same. I will bring you more stories to tell. I'll bring you more content. Stay safe out there in this pandemic. Make sure you wear your masks, social distance, wash your hands, as it's been repeated many times. But thank you very much for tuning in once again. And as I always say, keep working hard. And no matter what you do, remember to always keep it simple. Have a wonderful day.